Hello, it's Anna Hill here. This time, after years of conflicting arguments about the actual amount of fish in the sea and conservation demands for protecting fish stocks, Cornwall leads the way on bringing scientists and fishermen together.
How do we turn what fishermen are seeing at sea and experience at sea into credible evidence to influence policy development and fisheries management?
We'll have more on that a little later. First today, a few weeks ago we reported on a potato farmer in Lincolnshire who couldn't sell his crop. Well, now it's happening again, this time in Cambridgeshire, where Luke Ablett is giving away a surplus of potatoes which he can't sell.
It cost me around about £200-ish a tonne to grow. So yeah, if I was only getting like 90 from the merchants, I was already losing money anyway, so it's not a great year for potatoes, put them like that. And I've got about 60 tonne left, and I've got these 12.5 in bags. So the 12.5 go to waste. They're already in bags. I already lost money on them, so I might well make something good out of something bad and donate them around to food banks and charities within Cambridgeshire and beyond.
Well, it seems there is an oversupply of potatoes from a very successful growing season last year. But it's not just in the UK, it is across Europe too. As planting for next year's crop is underway, perhaps some farmers are asking themselves whether it's worth using a lot of expensive red diesel to prepare the ground and plant the next harvest. I spoke to Scott Walker, CEO of GB Potatoes.
It's a tough market for growers at the moment, particularly those with potatoes not covered by contracts. Now, after 2 years of reasonable prices for potato growers, what you had last year was record production in Europe, the highest level of potato production since 2017 in Europe, and a very good level of production here in the UK. So what we had a situation from a market that was nicely in balance between demand and supply. We've moved to a market where there is more potatoes than there are demand at the present time.
Has the demand dropped at all? Are people still buying them? Do people want to eat them?
If you look, say, over a 20-year period, what the trend has been is a big increase in processed products. So whether that's French fries that people buy from the supermarkets or the other processed potato products, that demand has increased. At the same time, sadly, though, we've saw a decrease in fresh potatoes, and I think there isn't so much home cooking, so people are going for the convenience. It's not so much the demand's changed, it's just the case that last year you had a combination of weather-wise, both in Europe and the UK, that ended up with a lot more potatoes being produced than was expected, and also that came on the back of, generally speaking, 2 years of good prices, so there was probably a little bit more potatoes went in the ground at the start of the season.
What is the prospect then for potatoes now?
Potatoes are one of the most costly, high investment products that are produced on a farm. So you've got to buy the seed, you've got all the inputs that go into potatoes, and we're facing very high red diesel prices because of the crisis in the Middle East. We know fertiliser prices are far higher than they were previously, and for potatoes that aren't sold immediately after harvest, what they do is they go into cold storage, and farmers just now are facing big increases in all those costs. So whether that's diesel prices, fertiliser prices or electricity prices, and again that's over a backdrop of potato price falling quite a lot this year.
So we know that planting is taking place at the moment. Do we have any figures to show whether less hectarage of potatoes is going in the ground this year?
Unfortunately, we don't gather that sort of data now in the UK, and it's quite hard to get hold of that data as well across in the continent. Looking to the year ahead and growers making that decision whether to plant, those who have contracts have that confidence that there's a guaranteed market at the end of the day, there's a guaranteed price for their potatoes. But for those who are growing on spec, it's a difficult decision to make.
Scott Walker there, CEO of GB Potatoes. Now, all week we're taking a closer look at agroforestry, from fruit and nut trees within arable crops to hedgerows for biodiversity. Another option is silvo-pasture, that's growing trees on the pasture fields used by livestock. An organic farmer from Shropshire says the health of his 300 cows has improved since he planted willow trees on his pasture land. Tim Downs got the idea after attending a conference in the United States in 2014. He says his cows have fewer issues with fertility and ailments like mastitis because willow trees have properties which benefit their health. Bob Hockenhull reports from Longner near Shrewsbury.
As the trees were very young, over the first 5 or so years, they were protected with an electric fence. We took that away. Hindsight, I probably should have left some sort of protection, because the bulls that were out during the wintertime used them as rubbing posts, and some of them have ended up not being vertical anymore. But the cows thoroughly enjoy them. There's one over there scratching on the established tree.
At the moment, the trees aren't in full bloom, obviously, and in fact you've done some work on them recently, haven't you?
Yes, so after the really serious drought last year, we chopped them off at around about 4 to 5 feet high, allowing them to sprout again and protect the base of the tree. And then the branches and twigs will be chipped and used in gateways or in the biomass boiler as well. So there's an end use for the willow branches. And then I'd like to replant any missing trees as well.
They'll soon grow again.
Willow will grow anywhere, yes. So we've done some research both with the Woodland Trust, Nottingham University on mineral content. They extract minerals from the soil, chiefly selenium, cobalt, copper, and all useful to animal health. We're after improving palatability. We have made tree hay in the past, but the idea we are most keen on is having them as an easy care browsing species. The animals actually do the harvesting in the field. They also contain a high level of salicylic acid, the willows, the cracked willow and white willow we've got here, and that's a main ingredient in aspirin. So anti-inflammatory, pain relief, a fantastic way of improving animal health.
And as regards the health of the cows, what have you noticed since you've had these trees here?
They're healthier in very many ways. So being an organic herd producing milk for the American market, we're concentrating heavily on reducing antibiotic usage. We've not used antibiotics in the dairy herd for over 10 years now, and part and parcel of that has been looking at alternative treatments and making sure that the animals are given the best possible forage and nutrition, and trees have an active role in that, I believe. That's the main reason for including them in the diet. It's reduced the stress on the animals, and stress is a big precursor to fertility problems, lameness problems, mastitis problems, all those sort of things. And I think the trees that we've planted have added to our herd health hugely.
We've mentioned the willow trees, but you also got walnut trees here. Tell us why you decided to plant them.
I read a book about the hidden life of trees. There was a paragraph in there that said that pheromones were given off by walnut trees that discourage flies. So we've planted 20 round the milking parlour and collecting yard, and they certainly have an effect. And now you get the added advantage of walnuts. They've been in about 10 years now, and they're providing shade and shelter from any strong winds. But the most important bit is fly control as well. And we've seen that in evidence in the milking parlour. We get very few fly issues now.
Farmer Tim Downs. A new collaboration has been set up between scientists and the fishing industry in Cornwall to integrate scientific research with the real experience of fishers. Assessing current fish stocks and how not to damage them has often been a point of contention between the two, but now it's hoped that the Cornwall Fisheries Science Board will deliver sustainable fisheries management for the area. The board includes representatives from the government, scientists and fishing and conservation groups. Chris Ranford from the Cornish Fish Producers Association told me he welcomes the new approach.
This is a very unique collaboration, so there are other examples of science boards out there on a global level, but we're not aware of anything else that exists nationally, so this is a first of its kind. The need has come from the Cornish fishing strategy that was set out in 2022. And one of the key pillars of that is for the industry, the fishing industry, to get much closer and work in collaboration with the scientific community to get the most accurate evidence of what's happening in our seas and really bringing fishermen much closer to that conversation to contribute to that data and evidence to inform good fisheries management for sustainable fishing.
Often on this programme we talk about fish stocks not being enough to allow catches to go ahead, and then sometimes the fishermen dispute that and say, well, actually there's plenty of fish in the sea. So is this board really to sort of square the circle, as it were, and sort of get that real evidence from the sea and from the scientists and join it together?
Indeed, very much so. I think the frustration often from the fishing industry is the data lag. A lot of scientific assessments are done using previous year's data or multiple years behind. And obviously fishermen are very much first-hand witnessing things happening on a daily basis. The lag between science and then management is that middle gap that frustrates a lot of fishing businesses and the inability to be agile and flexible. So bringing the fishing industry and the science community together, we can start to look about how do we turn what fishermen are seeing at sea and experience at sea into credible evidence to influence policy development and fisheries management.
It seems a little bit obvious, doesn't it? I mean, why hasn't it happened before?
I think it's having the resource to do these things. We, as an organisation, the Cornish Fish Producers Organisation, have bolstered our team to actually address this. We've recently recruited a dedicated fisheries science post. At the other side of these things, there's obviously lots of strict processes in place. So I'm very proud of the Cornish fishing industry for stepping up and bolstering its team and adding to its resource to take this on. We see it as a big priority. So I think in the past there's been lots of will and the want to do this, but ultimately we're in a position now where we've got a team to be able to do it. And the government's Fisheries Act sets out a real vision of co-design and co-management of our seas, of our resources. And this is a big step from us to meet them on that and really step up our engagement to something meaningful.
Yesterday we talked about a report from the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Select Committee. Now that talked about having a sea use framework, a bit like the land use framework. Do you have one for Cornwall?
There's no such thing, as I understand, as a sea use framework. I think the overarching message from the fishing industry in general at the moment is to really push for having a national fishing strategy. We're at the mercy of a lot of other industries operating in and around the marine space, and fishing is very much getting poked and pushed and moved around by all of these other ambitions. So to get something down credible on paper, recognised by government and supported by the fishing industry is a major priority. And I think Cornwall is a great example of having its own fishing strategy. So we've already done a lot of the legwork. It probably doesn't differ too much. What we've got in the southwest is what we could do nationally. Recognition for good science and industry's involvement in collecting that. How do we get the best price for our fish? So enhancing our market routes. How do we train the future generation of fishermen and really address the importance of having people working on boats going to sea? And how do we ensure we've got a really modern supply chain, getting the actual fish through to the consumer, be it domestic or export?
Chris Ranford from the Cornish Fish Producers Association. That's all from us. I'm Anna Hill. The producer was Rebecca Rooney. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.